And today's guests on the Financial Planner Live podcast are a father and son duo from St James's Place. We've got Karl, who's been running his practice for quite a few decades, and we've got his son Harry, who's quite new to the profession after a career as a professional musician. Now, we also talk about the power of the St James's Place Academy, how that's helped with their succession planning, how it's helped train Harry to be able to do the job of financial planning. We talk about his future aspirations, taking over the family business. I think you're going to love this podcast episode. Hi guys, thanks for joining me today on the Financial Planner Live podcast. How are you both?
Really good, thanks for asking, Sam. How about you?
Yeah, not bad at all. Thank you very much. Not bad at all. I was just saying, I've literally just got off of another podcast with three people in total, including myself. So I never usually do threesomes on the podcast, but here we go. We've got another one to actually do. So interestingly as well, that podcast was also about succession planning, you know, and the benefits of hiring a younger advisor into the financial planning business. And Harry, you are definitely a younger advisor. Yep. Karl, you are definitely looking to exit the industry. I didn't say you were definitely an older advisor there, did I? You're definitely looking to exit the industry. But the difference here is father and son outfit, right?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Fantastic. Well, let's get our audience knowing you straight away then. So why don't you just give us a little bit of background stories for you both. So let's start with you, Karl, first. What's your background?
Yeah, so originally when I was at school, I was an air cadet and I wanted to go in the RAF. But my father, who was in financial planning at the time, he went to parents' evening and the business studies and accounts teacher said, Karl's got a flair for this. So he came home to me and said, you're not going in the RAF, sunshine. You're going to do a 2-year apprenticeship with me. And if you still like it after that, then you can carry on running the business in due course, or you can go and pursue the RAF career. So here we are 39 years later. So at the age of 16, I left school. I did an apprenticeship with my father. Sadly, he died suddenly after my 20th birthday. So it was a case that I had to literally pick up the baton and run with it as a 20-year-old. And like I say, here we are 39 years later.
Right. Okay. So you've done a 39 career within financial services, mainly
Correct.
Financial advice. Right. Okay.
Correct.
Do you ever look back and wish you were a pilot?
No, I think the opportunities that we've got in this profession is absolutely fantastic. The wealth that you're able to kind of create in terms of building your own business, the kind of income structure model, and to serve people and help them to kind of realize their dreams. It's a huge honor to be able to do that.
It's always been one of those very glamorous roles, isn't it, being a pilot, but you often see them sort of running from one to another and they look absolutely knackered and disheveled or sleeping at the airport or whatever. I don't think it's as glamorous as it sounds, right?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on being a pilot. I was going to be a rock ape. So for anybody who knows what that is, that's the RAF regiment who deals with the security and defence of the base. So it's not quite the glamorous thing of rocking up in Top Gun style in your whites and sort of singing that sort of famous song and attracting young ladies. It was more about running around in camo gear and doing all that good stuff. Yeah. It's a huge honour to have Harry, in the practice as the third generation in the family.
Well, fantastic. So third generation of financial services. So Harry, you're now working with your dad in the partner practice of St James's Place, and we'll get onto that a bit. But what were you doing prior then, and why did you end up getting into financial planning?
So I got into it, I think, probably because I've been surrounded by it my entire life. Obviously, when I think naturally as an inquisitive child, you always pay an interest in what your dad is up to. So I was always asking questions about work and what he does and things like that. And didn't really think much of it. And then I left school at 18. And when I left school at 18, I was in bands at the time and wanted to kind of pursue my music career. You can see the guitars behind me. I'm a musician at heart as well. So naturally, music, when you're at the grassroots level, you don't get paid. No. Or if you do get paid, you don't get paid well. So for me, it was always about a means to an end, about supporting the lifestyle that I wanted to kind of pursue, which was seeing where the bands would go. So I joined the business, didn't I, Dad? And it literally started with scanning paperwork. That's where it started. I was literally sat there kind of 7, 8 hours a day scanning paperwork. And then the role kind of grew from there into kind of more of an admin based role, power planning work, that kind of stuff. But there was only kind of enough work to do 2.5 days a week, something like that. So I had to find something else as well. So I was joining an accountancy practice that we work really closely with. And I started to train as an accountant at the same time. So I was doing my band work, the accountancy training, and then the financial planning side of things as well. And then it just got unsustainable, to be honest with you, Sam. I couldn't keep all three of them going at the same time. So I had to start planning ahead about, okay, well, what do I see myself doing in 10 years' time? And actually, when I sat down with myself and kind of just had that tough conversation, this is where I wanted to be. And when I made that decision straight away and kind of went, good, okay, well, I'll can off the accountancy. I'll phase the band work out and I'll push forwards ahead with this. And then kind of from there, went into the SJP Academy. And then we are where we are today.
Ah, fantastic. So what stage are you at in your career right now then, Harry? How long have you been in the financial planning business? You mentioned about the academy, gone through it. Where are you in your career right now?
Yeah, so within the business, or our business, I've been working in it for just over 9 years. I had a notification that came up on my phone the other week saying that I've been in the business 9 years. So obviously that includes that time where I was just doing basic admin work. I went through the academy September 20 till April 21. And then from then onwards, I've been kind of client facing financial planning with clients. So just over 3 years out of that now. So quite early on in my career, but kind of helping to grow the business. And ultimately, you mentioned it already about that whole succession planning side of things. That's what we're working towards as well.
So, Karl, tell us a little bit about what stage you are at in your career then. Harry being at the beginning by the sounds of it. Where are you?
So I've got one eye on the exit door, you might say. So Harry's part of the succession plan that we have in our practice. So I've eased back to working 3 to 4 days a week now, depending on the workflow that we've got within the practice. But the idea is that actually in about 18 months' time, Harry will become the practice principal. And I'll move across then to being more of a consulting role, more of a chairperson type role, if you like, with the team and the practice. So that's kind of really energizing because it's allowing Harry to come forward as the new guard, really, equally giving me more time to pursue the things that I want to do.
Oh, fantastic. So, Harry, how has the St. James's Place Academy helped you during that process then? Has it been good training, good development, good grounding to be able to become the next person running the family business?
Very much so. When I was reflecting upon this and what it's actually given me, I think, just going back to the point, I left school at 18 and didn't go off to university, like I've kind of already alluded to, simply because I didn't know what I wanted to go off and do at that time. And then when I made the decision to kind of come down this route, the academy was the perfect route to go. A large part of that was to do with time. Yeah, so I was through the academy in 6 months rather than going off to university for 3 or 4 years and then having to build a career at that point. It kind of gave me that opportunity to go, okay, I got a base level of knowledge here already. I'll do it for 6 months, come out fully qualified, and I can be building my business straight away. Mm-hmm. I think that was a really great tool to have there. So from a time aspect. From a support aspect, they were great. You were there every single day. The right people were kind of surrounded by you, giving you the right training. So whether that was client-facing people skills or more of the technical side of things, they always had the right people in the right places to impart that upon you. So that was always really good. Like I've kind of said there, client-facing skills as well. It's not something that I'd ever really done before. I'd maybe spoken to people on the phone and things like that, but never really had to deal with kind of conversation and kind of unpacking what people are saying and kind of probing and those kind of skills, and leading people in the right direction. So all of that was really useful as well. And then actually the support you get from the academy doesn't stop when you exit. So when you leave the academy and you enter kind of the partnership, the support kind of continues. So you still got development managers around you that are from the academy as well. So you have that for another kind of 6-12 months or so. So actually that process is really smooth. It's really smooth from training into kind of implementation.
Fantastic. And Karl, from your perspective then, being a partner practice owner, has the St. James's Place Academy helped you onboard Harry without you having to put too much energy and effort into it? Or is it kind of complemented your approach to on-the-job training?
It's been invaluable, to be honest with you, Sam, because at the end of the day, as Harry said, he came out of the academy, he was qualified, he had some soft skills training, and let's not forget also that the cohort of people that he went through the academy with were mature people who'd had other careers. And that was excellent in my view, in terms of Harry's personal and professional development, rubbing shoulders with good people. So for me, it was more of a point of then sort of fine tuning things for him. So it was minimal disruption to the practice, which means that we could get him up and running really, really well. And he was making an impact straight away. And I think it's what makes the SJP model really, really attractive, because ultimately, for practice principals like me, it means that you can get these people into the practice and up and running quickly. So I think it's a win-win situation. It works well for the partnership, but it also works well for the continuity of SJP. Because when I see people now coming through the academy, the quality of young professional people coming through, I just find it really encouraging, and I'm excited about their futures.
So, Harry, how old were you when you graduated from the academy?
I would have been 24,
Right.
Just turned 24, only a couple of months before, yeah.
So are you aware of the stats? I think it's about 1,200 advisors under the age of 30 years old. And I think about 150 under the age of 25. You are, to graduate at that age and be out there delivering financial planning is, you're in a very small percentage that have done it. Now, I put a post out, I commented on a post recently, and someone said people under the age of 30 being financial planners is too much of a risk. They haven't developed enough as human beings and adults to be able to have the responsibility of managing somebody's money, or to relate to specific life events that someone might have, divorce, retirement, death, all these types of things. Like life experience apparently isn't enough, but interesting comment. And there is a distinct lack of younger people in the financial planning profession. What's your take on that? Do you feel like, being a younger advisor, that's not the case, that you are being treated with the same respect from clients, for example, as maybe your dad?
So you get treated with the same respects, but you have to earn it. And I think you probably have to earn it more than maybe someone of a similar age that would show up. I think it's simply because you're right. There are stereotypes around there that if you're young, you don't have the experience or the knowledge or kind of the life experience to be able to have those in-depth, meaningful conversations that actually really delve down into the detail, which allows you to do your job properly and actually give the right advice. So I think age is something that I've had to kind of fight against a little bit, but more so with kind of cold people, new people that are coming in who don't necessarily know me, but actually give them 2 or 3 conversations with you. If you're good enough, you'll put them at ease, and actually that kind of then goes away. Also, I think people these days are now starting to think about, am I going to have an advisor that is going to see me through my life? Yeah. So people get retired. Their lives are important to them, and actually that life stage change, going, okay, well, I need someone here to kind of guide me through this. And is that person going to be here and going to see me through my life? Now, if you're showing up and you're kind of 60, 65 and you're an advisor, the chances are you're not going to be working for the next 30 or so years. So actually for them, having someone a bit younger who they know in all likelihood is going to be around for them to see them through their lives actually is a really powerful tool. And also it doesn't just apply to young people, but like I've said, I've just gone through the academy. I'm working my way through my exams to go to higher qualifications as well. So actually my knowledge is kind of on the right up to date. It's kind of as up to date as it possibly can be as well, rather than kind of having earned the stripes and kind of took my foot off the gas, as it were.
Yeah, that's a really good point, I suppose, isn't it? It's fresh in your mind, whereas Karl, maybe it's not as fresh in your mind. You haven't just done your qualifications, right? So I think that is kind of like an argument, isn't it? When you've just gone through the process, you're qualified and you're younger, you're maybe a bit closer to, I don't know, the truth perhaps. But that's not to say that people who haven't done their qualifications recently don't know what they're talking about, but maybe you get where I'm coming from. It's kind of like you're so fresh in it that you're kind of double checking everything. You're making sure that everything you're saying is right.
Yeah.
Interesting that you sort of mentioned about the being the advisor for the rest of their life. I think that is a really good angle, and it's one that a lot of young advisors that I speak to use.
Yeah.
That I may be young, but I'm going to be with you for the next 25, 30 years. So I'm going to be with you on your whole journey. And I think from your perspective then, Karl, having the ability to pass your clients on then to your son and knowing that they're in safe hands and that you're not just selling it on to somebody that isn't connected to you must be quite reassuring as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a story that we've been telling our clients for probably 10 years. It's like, I won't be here forever. And there is a succession plan, but the third generation layman will come through and look after you. And I guess that kind of continuity is really important to them, because they're not just rocking up one day and finding that they've got a new advisor and they don't know who they are, they don't know what their values are, etc. There's a kind of family standard that we have within the practice, and it makes that transition easy, because we've actually transferred most of the client base already over to Harry, so he does most of the client work. In terms of client-facing meetings, and I do more of the kind of business development side of things now. And the transition of that has been exceedingly easy, hasn't it, Harry?
It does, yeah. We had to work at it, didn't we? We had to put like a proper plan in place. It's kind of ironic with as financial planners, this is what we do, but we had to put a proper plan in place to make sure that process was as smooth as possible for ourselves as much as for the clients as well.
It's quite nice when I've had clients text me following meetings and saying, "Karl, why did you not transfer me over to Harry sooner? He's much better than you." Which is great. You always want your kids to be better than you were, and it's a great testament to Harry, to all the hard work that he's put in, but also the fact that he's got such a great growth mindset, and he'll absorb all sorts of stuff. He'll take it on board and he'll just add it to his armory. It's a pleasure to watch.
Sort of long term then, Harry, when you think about taking the business forward, what does it look like in your head?
That's something that I've had to think about quite a lot, I would say, over the last 12, 18 months, as we've started to have the conversations about me buying into the business and actually ultimately buying it off Dad as he kind of moves out of the business. I mean, for me, I want to make sure that each client still has that intimate face-to-face kind of relationship, I think is the right word. And it is a relationship. It's not transactional in any way. They're not kind of customers or anything like that. It's actually a deep relationship. And actually, I think keeping the business at that size where you can maintain that, I think is really important. And if you do want to grow the business, it's about bringing in the right people as well. So recruitment is something that obviously I will look to. If I need to replace Dad ultimately in kind of 3-5 years time, I'll have to work out who that right person is as well. They have to be the right person for the way that we do things within the business as well. But yeah, my goal is to kind of take the business and take it to at least kind of triple to where it is at the moment before I even start to think about what's next for me. But at the moment, it's just about getting off the ground. I'm only 3 years into being an advisor. It's about gaining all of those skills that we've been talking about a lot. And then when ultimately the succession comes around, then starting to think bigger picture about, okay, well, who else needs to come into the business and support me and our clients as well?
Okay, cool. What about your philosophy then as a business, your philosophy around, say, financial planning? What is it?
So I guess we describe ourselves as being proper financial life planners, which there's a backstory to that. I almost quit the profession because the old way was really much a focus on selling products, i.e. financial advice. And thankfully I didn't. I retrained as a coach. I also become a certified financial planner through what was the Institute of Financial Planning, and then subsequently a chartered wealth manager. And our philosophy is, helping people to engineer what their kind of life plan looks like first and foremost, and then looking at the financial plan to see how it can support that life plan. and then, and only then, if necessary, doing the financial advice thing. So we have this phrase where we talk to people and say we focus on ROL, not ROI. So that's the kind of return on life rather than return on investment, because ultimately at the end of the day, Sam, our view is that money is just an energy, isn't it? It allows us to do stuff, good or bad, but it's an enabler. But unless you unless you know with crystal clear clarity exactly what people want, what their dreams are, what their hopes are, what keeps them awake at night, then our view is we don't have the right to tell them what to do with their money. Do you agree, Harry, with that?
I would agree. I mean, saving, investing is all very well and good, but why? It is understanding that why that is really, really important. And actually, I think for us to do our jobs properly, we need to be able to understand that to make sure that ultimately the advice that we give is 100% the right thing to be doing.
So, Harry, how do you approach that then when it comes to having that conversation with a client? Because I could imagine they sit down in front of you and they think you're going to start talking about numbers. Yeah. It sounds to me like you're talking about energy and flow and purpose. How do you approach those types of meetings?
I don't know what you're like, Dad, but I'm quite upfront about the facts. So when I sit down for that first life planning meeting with a potential client or a new client, I make the point at the beginning that, look, you might think that I'm a financial advisor, I'm a financial life planner, I'm here to talk to you about finances, about money. Forget that for the next hour and a half. Forget it for the next hour and a half. All we're going to talk about is you, your values, your dreams, your goals, what it is that ultimately you want to go away and achieve, so that actually when we know that, when we bring the finances in, it all then starts to make sense. We see this all the time where people go, oh, I'm chucking away X amount of money per month, and it feels good for kind of 2 or 3 months or 6 months or a year. Then people kind of tend to forget why they're doing what they're doing. And actually getting them to really focus on this life planning element to start off with, it's like an anchor, isn't it, almost, to kind of keep coming back to go, oh, that's the reason that I'm doing X, Y, and Z. So actually, the longer the process goes on, the more it makes sense.
What's your favourite question to ask to get them thinking?
That's a really good question, actually. I think the whole way you see yourself in 10 years' time is a really powerful one. It's the most basic question that you can ask, but I think it gets people to think deeper than just surface level answers. And then actually from that, you can then unpick it a little bit more about, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about why that's important to you. And then actually you then start to get the really important answer. So it might sound daft, but actually just asking those surface level questions and then peeling back the layers from there tends to work quite well.
Karl, is this something that you've passed on to Harry then? Is this a philosophy that you've always had, or is it something that you learned along the way? Where did it come from?
So in my early part of my career as an IFA, it was very much focusing on the latest shiniest new product or wrap platform, whatever it may be. And the reason why I almost quit the profession was because of that. So when I decided not to, my wife, Sarah, she's a clinical psychologist by background. So she did some coaching with me and extracted from me some of what my core values are. And she challenged me. She said, look, I think you're really good at what you do, but can you not redesign what the typical sort of advisor is doing out there, which is where the whole dream it, plan it, live it philosophy came from, because working with people almost like in a kind of coaching capacity. I can remember when I was first doing it, the compliance officers at SJP were going, what are you doing? It's almost like you're messing with people's minds. And I said, well, actually, all we're doing is actually asking really discerning, soft facts questions. So the more you understand your client, know your client as a regulator principle, the more you understand your client, the better equipped that you can be. So out of that was born the kind of dream it, plan it, live it philosophy, which is something that, I surrounded myself with, good people like Paul Armson and, inspiring advisors and, other people in the profession as well. And then we kind of refined it and found out what worked, on our personalities. And we have this process that in our practice, which we call your financial life plan. And that's what we use, which is a bit of an amalgam of lots of different people's thinkings and obviously our own experience over the last 20 years now.
So you've written some books as well around this. Tell us a little bit about those books that you've wrote. What do they cover?
So Dream It, Planet Live It was the first one that was released in 2015. So that was there's a backstory to that as well. So Stephen Sutton was a teenage lad dying of cancer. People might be familiar with Stephen's story. It was about this lad who had a terminal sort of diagnosis, and basically he was trying to do a number of things, on his bucket list. And then it went beyond that. He actually wanted to kind of raise £10,000 for the Teenage Cancer Trust. And I got involved because I was chairing a business group near his area at the time. And I used to take Stephen around to different speaking gigs. And his positivity was just inspiring. Bearing in mind, he didn't know how long he had left to live, but he knew that the clock was, ticking on, as it were. And I can remember parking up at a place and saying to Stephen, I said, how can you be so positive when you're staring at this? And he said, Karl, the thing is, he said, you've got a limited life. You just haven't realized it yet. No. And got hairs up the back of my neck now as I say that out loud. But he said to me, actually, I think you've got a book in you. And I said, well, it's interesting you should say that. I've kept all these notes over the last sort of 20 years. And he challenged me to write the book, which is where the Dream It, Planet Live It book came out. And there's actually a testament to Stephen in the book. So that's where that one came from. And the idea behind that was basically to help people, facilitate a bucket list, get their brain thinking what's really important to them in life. We all have these ideas of what's important, but what is really important? So that kind of psychological perspective, really, of understanding oneself, and then helping people to get some clarity in terms of what financial ducks they need to get lined up in a row to be able to create what we call a freedom fund. In other words, a pot of money that allows them to make work optional. So that's where that book came from. The second one, which I'm trying to think now, that came out in November 2022. Yes, November 22, which is Money, Mind, Meaning. Now that one took it onto another level because the feedback that we had was the first book was great for those pre-retirements. It really got them to think about their future. But for people who are staring at the door, at retirement or indeed in retirement, living that kind of best life or, that life of abundance, whatever you want to call it, Sam, it was written more for them. And I guess during the COVID years, I did a lot of research into things like happiness and, abundance and where that comes from. So a lot of that book is dedicated to kind of really what our meaning for being is on here. And I know that sounds a little bit woo-woo, but ultimately, we're here to make, a particular stamp on planet Earth. And what does that mean? So that was a real passion, that book. And it seems to have sort of touched a number of people's hearts, really, I think.
No, that's fantastic. And Harry, is that something that you also echo, the thoughts and everything that's gone into these books? Were they written together, or were they something that you've kind of taken upon reading and had passed down from your dad, for instance?
The latter. So I was around for both books in terms of the process, seeing what was involved with it. I was involved with both books in terms of, I guess, kind of pulling them all together, but not so much the content that was in there. That's very much from my dad and from his heart rather than mine. I had the honor of writing the foreword to the second book, though, which was interesting. So I did manage to get some of my own stuff in there. But it's stuff that I've been taking on board for the last 9 years. I know I've been an advisor for the last 3, but actually I've been in the business for the last 9 years. So I've started to pick up the culture, the values that we hold, and actually the way that I feel is right to go about financial planning. And it is all in those books. It is all in those books. So whilst it's not my name on the bottom of the book, those values are still close to my heart and the way that I do business as well.
So you're delivering the book to your clients in the way that, yeah, lovely. And do you feel like it does build a deeper connection with the client?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to say for sure, because obviously I've not been part of the other world of not doing that, whereas Dad has, but I can't see how it wouldn't. asking those questions, the deeper questions, getting people to really think about what's important to them. I can't see how that wouldn't have that impact on people's lives.
You see, lots of people write books, and it became quite a trend. And someone had like an Amazon bestseller. I got an Amazon bestseller, and everyone's writing books. How have you used those books, though? I know they're obviously full of fantastic information, but how have you used those books in your business to be able to, let's say, generate clients? Let's say use them as lead magnets, for instance. Are they used in that way? Is that fair to say?
Go on, Harry. I'll let you take the lead on that one.
I definitely think so. I mean, not everyone is going to pick up the book and read every single page. That's just the reality of it. However, when you are sending shock and awe packs out to clients before meetings, so kind of new clients that are coming on board, you're sending them almost like a welcome pack almost, and there's a book in there, all of a sudden you're an authority. It doesn't matter if they pick it up and read it, but in their minds, you're an authority on that subject. Also, I think if you're competing for clients as well, because very often if you're sitting down with a new client, they're going to be scoping out maybe one or two other people as well. If you show up and you put one book down and then you put a second book down, all of a sudden, those two or three other people, chances are they're even going to put one book down, let alone two. So straight away in their mind, they don't even have to open the book and read the thing. You're at the top of the list. Yeah. But then it compounds that if they do open the book and read it, then there's quality content in there as well that is meaningful. So that's kind of how I think it has an impact from a lead generation standpoint as well.
Karl, what about yourself then over your career? You've probably used the book more than Harry has. Have you found it beneficial in your financial planning process and generating clients?
Absolutely. I think when you go out networking, obviously you have your little elevator pitch that you might use. But there was another gentleman who actually runs a mastermind group that Harry and I are part of. And, we'd rock up and we'd both have our books with us, and you can hold that and say, well, number one best-selling author of X, Y, and Z. It's a pattern interrupt, isn't it? It gets people's attention, and ultimately people buy from people. So they won't just come on board just because you've written a book or because you're chartered or because you're certified. You've got to build that relationship with people, but it does make people sit up and think. And people on the periphery, if they're just got a particular interest, and we might send a book and say, I think chapter 23 is ideal for you. And if nothing else, they read that one chapter time and time again. Those people come back years later often, sometimes, 6, 7, 8, 9 years later, you get a call, go, Karl, do you remember that book you sent me? Well, now's the time. And you just think, if you keep putting bread on the water, the ducks will come, to use that analogy. So for us, it's been really, really great in terms of establishing some credibility. And it's a little bit different from just presenting a normal practice brochure.
How long did it take you to actually write the book out of interest? And did you write it yourself, or did you get like a ghostwriter to help you?
No, so every single word has been researched and analysed by myself. Obviously, my thinking has been shaped by a lot of thought leaders, in the world and the profession itself. The first book, I was on an accountability coaching program with the guy who mentored me through it. So that took me 3 months to sort of do, and I would segregate from 6 o'clock till about 8 o'clock in the morning to kind of do that Monday to Thursday. The second book probably did quicker because I just knew the formula better. I know people are throwing them out using all sorts of AI tools now, but every single word that, has been used there has been researched, thought about, considered. And Harry, you did have a part. You edited the book, and you might say, well, actually, Dad, you've missed the point there, so it's that kind of acid test. So it's been really cool in that regard. And I'd encourage people, if they can do it, to consider the possibility that it might just position them in a different way. And it's your personality that comes through. And as I say, people buy people. So they want to engage with people that kind of get them. And for people that don't get us, that's absolutely fine. We're not the right sort of advisors for them. But there's a number of choices out there. People can make an informed choice, can't they?
Oh, 100%. I think challenging the norm between the idea that money makes you happy is a good thing in general. And then when you switch on its head and say that purpose makes you happy, find out what it is find out what your why is. Why are you earning this money? What is it you want to do? And time is finite, you know, and what was his name again? The lad who died?
Stephen Sutton.
Stephen, you know, he hit the nail on the head, didn't he? You know, we've all got a ticking clock. It's just, you just don't know yours yet. And I think when we start to think about what it is we're working towards, why we're spending so much time exchanging our time for money, it's like, well, hang on, why am I doing this? Am I working towards something that's meaningful? So I think anything which kind of challenges it. And I think when you get to have that conversation, you sit down with someone, you get them to think differently about financial planning. I think it's really positive. Me coming from a background of not being a financial planner and going into a financial planning company has allowed me to look at things in a completely different perspective and get a bit more creative around it. Harry, have you found that, like you yourself, like having a bit more of a creative background, have you found that you look at financial planning and recognize ways that you can enhance it or add more value? Are you kind of constantly thinking about how we could do this different? We could do this different. We could do this, because my brain's constantly all over the place trying to think about ways we could do things differently.
I think it must have done. I think especially in the earlier days when I was still doing the music and still exercising that creative side of my brain every single day. Now I still do, just to different extents. I definitely think so. I think partially, yes, I do look at it that way. But also, I think the way that we look at things already with the whole Dream It, Plan It, Live It philosophy is quite creative and freeing in a way anyway, because no two conversation is the same with any client, because we're not sheep dipping everyone through the same kind of financial process. We are actually identifying what's important to them. So actually, you listen to what people say. So if they're more visual, maybe when we actually send their life plan to them, we include more images rather than words and things like that. And you start to get creative with it that way. So just in terms of how you communicate with people as well, I think that creativity can come through.
And what are you guys working on? What are you working towards? So you created your book. Are you looking at any other sort of more digital ways of communicating and connecting with your audience, new and existing clients?
So yeah, we've got a number of strategies going. So digitally, we've got our own podcast now. So we've got the Dream It, Plan It, Live It podcast, which has been recently launched, and that's paying dividends already. There's the audio book for Money, Mind, Meaning, which is the second book, which is a project for me to do. Ironically enough, however, though, Sam, we're almost going a little bit old school. And from a marketing point of view, we're doing a lot more kind of what we call lumpy mail. So in this world of e-communications, we're finding that there's a lot of noise out there. And how many of us now actually sort of get posts that arrives that isn't a bill? So actually, if you turn up in almost like the good old fashioned way of actually sending something through the post. And we get a little bit creative about doing that, don't we, Harry? You know, maybe sending chocolate coins and things like that in with it as, you know, just a little bit of fun. We're finding that has much more impact. It kind of, penetrates through the noise of what can be a cluttered inbox or lots of sort of messages. Harry, any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, just on the physical side of things, we send out a newsletter, don't we, sporadically as well, which again is something physical that comes through the post, which is just full of short but useful information. We're not talking about masses of information here, just kind of a couple of sides of A4 and that's it really. But actually receiving something through the post, like you say, has more impact than receiving a weekly email.
That's interesting. So how many would you send out?
However many clients that we've got at the time. So I think anywhere last point, I think it was 170, something like that.
And so the newsletter goes out to people who are in our world. So it goes out to a bigger audience than that. So anybody we meet at networking events and things like that, they will get the kind of Dream It communication. And it just helps. It's a little touch point, isn't it? You know, the thing comes through the door, it's printed in colour, it's got Harry's beautiful face on it and, you know, my ugly mug. And I think, it's these two guys rocking up again. But you just have a little bit of fun with it because, you know, it's you got to let your personality through. You got to be remembered.
Do you think the traditional methods are coming back? And I think, you know, it's like when you receive a handwritten letter, isn't it?
Yes.
You're kind of like, wow, that's amazing. I love a nice handwritten letter. And you just think it's so personal. So I think that kind of creating a nice personal touch through the post is really, really nice. Absolutely. So You mentioned about your podcast. So what are you covering on the podcast then? And who's your target audience?
Harry, do you want to talk about that?
So obviously we've got the whole Dream It, Plan It, Live It philosophy. So what we tend to do is an episode of Dream It kind of style stuff, an episode of Plan It style stuff, and an episode of Live It. Into kind of changing with also getting some guests on the podcast as well. So we've had 2 or 3 guests who come on who are kind of leaders in their professions as well, just to kind of get their take on things. Some are really similar to what we do. Others are completely different. So, for example, we had a personal trainer, a fitness coach come on and actually talking about the importance of kind of mental well-being, but also physical well-being and actually the impact that has on our lives as well, and how that kind of ties into the financial side of things too. But essentially, at the moment, we're just running through the different topics within the book and then expanding upon them, because you got a chapter, but actually there's so much more that you can say about them. So that's how we're running the podcast at the moment.
Have you had much success from the podcast so far?
Yeah, I'd say so. We've had a number of people put their hand in the air and say, we'd like to have a discovery call with you. I've had a couple of people who are interested in engaging us as advisors. Harry, I know you have had as well, which has been really, really surprising because it's early days still. But it's just nice when people message you and say, listen to your podcasts, found your YouTube channel, I've watched your YouTube videos, I like what you're saying. And I guess part of what we're doing is pre-framing with people, our philosophy, our way of doing things. And I guess they either get it or they don't. And either way, that's fine. But it's really trying to, I guess, attract that tribe almost, Sam, that ideal tribe to us. So, I mean, we have ideal clients avatars in terms of who we're looking for. Predominantly, we work with business owners. They're typically over the age of sort of 40, but that's not necessarily the case. We've got all sorts of people from all sorts of ways of life. I think the common thing amongst all of our people, whether they be professional people, retired people, or business owners, is that they're open-minded, they're driven, they're willing to take advice. And we look for qualities in our clients in the same way that they might look for qualities in an advisor. It's a two-way thing, right?
So what are the qualities you're looking for from a client then? That's out of interest.
So it's that kind of open-mindedness. Are they open-minded? Are they driven? Are they willing to take advice? Because if you're dealing with somebody, and I'm sure any advisor listening to this, you've all sat across the desk from somebody who knows your job better than you. Let me tell you, it's not worth the while sort of working with people like that. Those people who've got the wrong attitudes in life, don't work with them. There's no point. Those people who respect you and they're eager and they share hopefully common values to you, grab them with both hands and sort of work with them, because you'll bring out the best in each other.
Do you go through a process of qualifying them before you meet them?
So the process is through the financial life planning process, we'll ask them a number of questions. We'll set them homework. And based on the questions, we'll know, won't we, Harry? We'll know whether they're an ideal client or not. Most people are, because they've kind of consumed a number of our social media posts or watch videos or listen to the podcast now. So they tend to pre-qualify themselves. But occasionally you get somebody you think, do you know what? I don't think we're a good fit.
Do you do that, Harry? Do you like to turn people away, or do you try and work with everybody? Because it's when you're a bit younger, you're kind of just eager just to work with anybody, aren't you?
Yeah. So what was drilled into me from the very beginning is don't work with people you don't want to work with, because it will make your life miserable in the longer run. It might be nice in the shorter term to get that financial hit of earning a few quid, but actually 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, it's going to come and bite you. So actually I've always been quite good at kind of screening who actually comes on board. And actually our marketing does a really good job of that. So the messages that we pump out on our social media, even the way that the book's written or the videos that we record are done, it's all kind of aimed with specific people in mind, that Daz already mentioned. So normally when people reach out, you kind of know that 80, 90% of them are going to be a good fit. And very often they are. But also people appreciate appreciate honesty, I found as well. So actually, if they aren't a good fit, just having that frank conversation and going, look, here's a couple of kind of pointers, but I don't think either you're ready to come through the process at the moment, or maybe we're not the right fit. I suggest you do X, Y, and Z. Actually, people appreciate that more than you just kind of going cold on them, or just ignoring their emails, or not taking their calls, et cetera, et cetera.
Guys, thank you so much for sharing your journey today at St. James's Place. And I really love the fact that you are a partnership, but you're also father and son. I couldn't imagine working with my dad, if I'm completely honest with you. But at the same time, kind of wish I did. You know, I wish I kind of had that relationship with my dad where I could work with him and build something together and share philosophy and ideas. And I think it's a lovely way to stay connected. Maybe that's just the romantic in me, and in the background you're tearing each other to shreds. I don't know. You tell me, but I think, you know, it's lovely to hear about a father and son business, and I think fair play to you guys, and the support I suppose that St. James's Place have had in the background just helps you get through the process a lot quicker, and also just takes some of that pressure off you, Karl, doesn't it, as well? You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, isn't it? You know, it's stressful enough bringing somebody on into a business, let alone somebody that's quite, you know, is younger, right? You know, it is going to be tougher to bring somebody on, I think, who is younger, that doesn't have that life experience. So having two sides of the coin, one is you can learn on the job and be able to impart wisdom and mentorship on that individual, but then have the kind of structure and the process and the technical knowledge in the background being trained. I think that's where SJP do things really, really well. And, you know, you're a shining example. And when we look at the things like succession planning, more businesses need to do it. They need to be looking at the next generation of advisor coming through, because they're going to be there long term with their clients. And you can impart that wisdom. You can impart best practice. And it doesn't have to be done at the last minute. It could be done 5-10 years before you decide to exit the business, Karl, like yourself. And by the sounds of it, you're not looking to exit. You're just looking to step back a bit and sort of impart wisdom and advice and work on other areas that are meaningful for you in your career and in your life goals, right?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic. All right, chaps. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. I think you've given a great insight into your journey there at St. James's Place, the impact of SJP Academy on that journey. And Harry, it's fantastic to get somebody in the profession who's kicking ass under 30 years old, right? Because we need more people like you doing it. So thanks for stepping up and sharing your career journey, buddy.
Thank you very much for having me.
Nice one. And thanks, Karl. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thanks, Sam.
Cheers, guys.